In today's economy, making every dollar stretch isn't optional. It's essential. That package of ground beef in your freezer can be turned into 25 different meals that cost less than $5 a piece. These are more than recipes. They are survival tactics that have helped American households through hard times for generations. Stay with me, and you'll see how this often overlooked protein can help ease your budget strain. Classic stuffed peppers. Let me tell you about my neighbor Martha, who lost her job during the 2008 recession. She said stuffed peppers were what kept her family fed for months. This dish is more than food. It's comfort that doubles as a survival plan. Bell peppers are one of the cheapest vegetables year-round, averaging about 75 cents each. One pepper becomes a complete meal container. For this recipe, you will need 4 bell peppers, half a pound of ground beef, some rice, a can of tomato sauce, and an onion. Total cost: just $4.84 for 4 servings. That works out to $1.21 per person. The real payoff is nutritional. Protein, vegetables, and rice together will keep you full for hours. Brown the beef with diced onion and garlic. Stir in cooked rice and half of the tomato sauce. Cut the tops off the peppers and remove the seeds. Stuff them with the beef mixture and pour the remaining sauce over the tops. Bake at 350 degrees for 35 minutes. What made this a staple in the Depression era was not only the low cost, but how it turned plain ingredients into something that felt special when times were hard. Families were not simply getting by, they were preserving dignity with meals that fed both body and spirit. Shepherd's pie. During the energy crisis of the 1970s, when heating bills and grocery costs were both squeezing family budgets, this all-in-one casserole delivered maximum nutrition with minimal fuel. For just $3.03, you can make a dish that feeds 4 people. That is about 76 cents per serving. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, 3 potatoes, an onion, 2 carrots, some frozen peas, a little flour, milk, and butter. Thomas, whose father was laid off during the auto industry crisis, said this recipe was how his mother fed a family of 6 on unemployment benefits. It was not just about being cheap, he said. It was a complete meal that only used the oven once, which saved on the gas bill too. Brown your beef with diced onion and carrots. Sprinkle with flour. Add water or broth and seasonings and simmer until thickened. Add peas. Transfer to a baking dish. Boil and mash potatoes with milk and butter. Spread over meat mixture and bake at 375 degrees. This double-duty, economical dish still helps families juggling several financial pressures today. Goulash. During several economic downturns in American history, this modest one-pot meal has fed people with few ingredients and little effort. For just $3.95, you can make a pot that feeds 6 people. That is only 66 cents per serving. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, 1 cup of elbow macaroni, 1 onion, 1 can of diced tomatoes, and a few basic seasonings. Richard, who grew up during the stagflation of the 1970s, said this was on his family's table at least twice a week. Mom called it stretching the meat, he said. But to us kids, it was just our favorite comfort food. We never realized it was because money was tight. Brown your beef with diced onion. Add macaroni, tomatoes, and 2 cups of water. Season with paprika and simmer until the pasta is tender and the sauce has thickened. This humble dish still gives filling comfort to families facing financial uncertainty today. Beef and corn fritters. During World War II rationing, when meat was scarce and costly, these fritters became a way to stretch a small amount of ground beef into a satisfying meal. It is a strategy that still helps families during personal financial crises. For just $2.91, you can make 12 fritters. That is only 24 cents each. You'll need 1/4 pound of ground beef, a can of corn, a cup of flour, 2 eggs, an onion, and a little oil for frying. Grit, whose husband was deployed during World War II, shared that these fritters helped her feed 3 children on her factory salary. "I could make them ahead and pack them in lunch pails," she explained. They stayed good all day and gave the kids protein when meat was hard to come by. Brown your beef with diced onion. Then stir in the drained corn, flour, eggs, and seasonings until you have a thick batter. Drop spoonfuls into hot oil and fry until they are golden on each side. That kind of practicality still helps working parents stretch limited resources today. Hamburger soup. During the harsh winter of 2019, when much of the Midwest faced record unemployment, this soup became a lifeline for many families. You only need half a pound of ground beef, a few basic vegetables like carrots, potatoes, celery, and onion, a can of diced tomatoes, and some beef broth. For about $4.34, you can make a pot that serves 6 people. That comes to just 72 cents per serving. This is not just soup, it is liquid gold when temperatures drop and heating bills rise. The preparation is straightforward. Brown the beef, add the chopped vegetables, and sauté until the onions are translucent. Add the tomatoes and broth, then let it simmer for 30 minutes. The real magic happens during that simmer. Flavors melt together, and the soup tastes like it has been cooking all day. I interviewed my Aunt Doris, who raised 5 kids on a factory worker's salary in Detroit. She would make this soup every Sunday, and they ate it for 3 days straight. It wasn't about being poor, she told me. It was about being smart with what we had. That kind of wisdom has helped countless American families through economic hard times. Simple beef enchiladas. Let me share a story that really touched me. When Maria from our community lost her husband to illness in 2018, she suddenly found herself raising 3 teenagers on a single income. These enchiladas turned into her Wednesday night ritual. Cheap enough to suit her new budget and special enough that her kids still felt a bit of normal amid their grief. All you need is half a pound of ground beef, a packet of taco seasoning, 8 corn tortillas, a small can of enchilada sauce, and a bit of cheese. For just $4.63, you can make 8 enchiladas that feed 4 people, $1.16 per serving. Brown your beef with the chopped onion. Drain off any excess fat. Add the taco seasoning with a splash of water. Dip each tortilla in the enchilada sauce. Fill it with the beef mixture, roll it up, and arrange the rolls in a baking dish. Pour the remaining sauce over the top, sprinkle with cheese, and bake at 375 degrees for 20 minutes until bubbly. Those enchiladas became Maria's quiet way of telling her children, "We are going to be okay," without saying the words. Food has long been how we show love and give steadiness when life is hard. This recipe is not only about feeding a family, it is about holding on to their sense of safety when the world feels uncertain. Salisbury steak with mushroom gravy. During the 1970s energy crisis, when American families were stretched thin by gas rationing and rising food costs, this modest dish became a restaurant-style meal you could make at home for much less. You will need half a pound of ground beef, some breadcrumbs, an egg, onion, mushrooms, flour, and beef broth. For about $4.37, you can feed 3 people, about $1.46 per serving. The emotional reward comes from making something that tastes like you spent more. Jim, a retired factory worker I interviewed, said his mother made this every payday Friday during the 1950s. It was never about the ingredients, he told me. It was about dignity. Even when money was tight, we felt like we were eating like kings. That same feeling lives on in this recipe today, turning necessity into a small but proud moment. Mix the beef with breadcrumbs, the egg, half of the diced onion, and the seasonings. Shape the mixture into oval patties and brown them in a skillet. Take the patties out, then sauté the remaining onion and the mushrooms in that same pan. Stir in the flour to form a roux. Gradually whisk in the broth. Put the patties back into the pan and let them simmer until the gravy thickens. Beef and bean burritos. You only need a quarter pound of ground beef, a can of refried beans, 8 flour tortillas, a little cheese, and a tomato. During the year 2020, when millions of Americans lost jobs unexpectedly, these burritos served as a lifeline for families facing sudden financial insecurity. For just $4.82, You can make 8 burritos. That is only 60 cents each. Brown the beef with taco seasonings, mix it with the refried beans, spread the mixture onto the tortillas, add diced tomato and cheese, then fold and roll. You can eat them as they are or toast them in a dry skillet for a crispy exterior. These can also be wrapped individually and frozen, creating an emergency meal stash that many families depended on during uncertain times. Sarah, a single mother of 3 in Ohio, told me these burritos helped her stretch her food stamps after she was furloughed. It was not just cheap food, she explained. It was knowing I could feed my kids something they actually enjoyed eating, even when I could barely pay the rent. These burritos stand for the resilience of American families who refuse to let financial hardship reduce the care they give. This Depression-era classic has helped American families through multiple economic downturns from the 1930s all the way to today's inflation challenges. You will need half a pound of ground beef, an onion, half a bell pepper, ketchup, brown sugar, mustard, and hamburger buns. Total cost: $4.82 for 4 sandwiches, $1.20 per serving. The real value is how quickly this meal comes together when you are exhausted from working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Frank, a retired school teacher, recalled that his mother fed 6 children on a janitor's salary during the 1950s. Sloppy Joes meant we had made it through another week. He said it was nothing fancy, just dependable when little else was. Brown your beef with diced onion and pepper. Drain off the extra fat. Stir in ketchup, brown sugar, and mustard, plus your seasonings. Let it simmer for 10 minutes until it is thickened slightly. Then pile it onto buns. This dish still offers that same comfort to families dealing with financial strain today. Beefy macaroni skillet. When layoffs hit steel towns in the 1980s, this skillet became a go-to for families suddenly living on unemployment. For only $3.72, you can make a skillet that feeds 4 people. That works out to 93 cents per serving. All you need is 1/3 pound of ground beef, a cup of elbow macaroni, an onion, a can of diced tomatoes, and a little cheese. Rebecca, whose husband lost his job in the auto industry in 2008, told me this meal kept them from using food banks for months. I could make it without thinking, she said. When you're worried about losing your house, having a meal you can make on autopilot is worth more than gold. Brown your beef with diced onion. Add the uncooked macaroni, the tomatoes, and water. Cover and simmer for 15 minutes until the pasta is tender. Stir in the cheese until it melts. This recipe continues to give both mental and financial relief to families facing similar struggles today. Cheesy beef rice casserole. During the savings and loan crisis of the early 1990s, when mortgage rates climbed and household budgets tightened, this filling casserole fed extended families who sometimes had to combine households. You need 1/3 pound of ground beef, a cup of rice, an onion, a can of cream of mushroom soup, and some cheese. For just $3.93, you can make a casserole that serves 6 people. That is about 66 cents per serving. Helen, who took in her daughter's family during the housing crisis, said this casserole fed 7 people for next to nothing. It was not just about the recipe, she explained. It was about keeping family together through hard times. Brown your beef with diced onion. Combine with uncooked rice, soup, water, and seasonings in a casserole dish. Cover with foil and bake at 350 degrees for 50 minutes. Then remove the foil, stir in the cheese, and return to the oven for 10 more minutes until the cheese melts. This casserole keeps offering steady support to multi-generational households, pooling what they have to get through hard economic times. Beef cabbage rolls. This Eastern European classic became a vital resource for American immigrant families during economic hard times, delivering strong nutrition and comforting satisfaction for very little cost. For just $4.81, you can make 8 cabbage rolls. That comes to only 60 cents each. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, 1/2 cup of rice, a head of cabbage, an onion, and a can of tomato sauce. Anna, whose grandparents came to America during the Great Depression, said cabbage rolls were how her family made it through those years. My grandmother could feed everyone for days on just a bit of ground beef and a head of cabbage, she told me. Mix the raw beef with partially cooked rice, diced onion, and seasonings. Boil the cabbage leaves until they are pliable, Then wrap them around the meat mixture. Arrange the rolls in a baking dish, pour the tomato sauce over them, and bake at 300 degrees for 1 hour. This practical wisdom still nourishes families coping with financial strain. Simple beef stroganoff. When the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s and many people suddenly lost their jobs, a pared-down version of this Russian classic brought comfort without draining tight budgets. For about $4.64, you can make 4 servings. That is $1.16 per person. You will need 1/2 pound of ground beef, 8 ounces of egg noodles, 8 ounces of mushrooms, some sour cream, and an onion. David, a software engineer who was laid off during that recession, said this dish became his family's Friday night ritual. It felt special enough that they did not feel deprived. He explained that the emotional boost mattered as much as the nutrition. Brown the beef with diced onion. Add sliced mushrooms and cook until they soften. Sprinkle with flour and cook for 1 minute, then slowly add water or broth and let it simmer until it thickens. Remove the pan from the heat and stir in the sour cream. Serve the finished sauce over cooked egg noodles. This recipe still carries emotional nourishment for families coping with economic uncertainty. Texas hash. During the farm crisis of the 1980s, when many rural American families faced foreclosures and financial ruin, this filling one-pan dish offered comfort and sustenance using ingredients farm households often already had on hand. For just $3.82, you can make a skillet that feeds 5 people. That is only 76 cents per serving. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, 1 cup of rice, an onion, a bell pepper, and a can of diced tomatoes. Martha, who grew up on a family farm during that hard time, told me this dish was how her mother fed 8 people when selling the farm seemed inevitable. Brown the beef with the diced onion and bell pepper. Add the uncooked rice, the diced tomatoes, water, and seasonings. Cover and simmer for 20 minutes or until the rice is tender. This meal still gives the same reassurance to rural families facing economic hardship today. Italian meatball soup. During the 2008 housing crisis, when many Americans lost their homes and had to drastically reduce expenses, this soup became a way to make a restaurant-quality meal for pennies on the dollar. For just $4.29, you can make 6 servings. That is about 72 cents per bowl. You will need 1/4 pound of ground beef, carrots, celery, an onion, breadcrumbs and egg, chicken broth, a little pasta, and a can of diced tomatoes. Robert, who lost his construction business during that recession, shared that this soup helped his family keep some normalcy. "We couldn't take the kids out to eat anymore," he explained, "but this soup made dinner feel special even when we were counting pennies." Mix the beef with the breadcrumbs, the egg, and seasonings, and form very small meatballs. In a pot, sauté the vegetables, then add the broth and the diced tomatoes. Bring the pot to a simmer. Then drop in meatballs and pasta. Cook until the meatballs are cooked through and the pasta is tender. This recipe continues to offer families a comforting sense of normalcy when they face sudden financial strain. Beef taco rice bowls. When pandemic-related inflation hit American households in 2022, this flexible dish helped families keep variety on the table while stretching shrinking grocery budgets. For about $4.57, you can make 4 bowls. That is $1.14 per serving. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, 1 cup of rice, taco seasoning, a can of black beans, a tomato, and some cheese. Lisa, a healthcare worker and mother of 3 teenagers, told me these bowls kept her sane during the price spikes. Kids could customize their own bowls, she explained, which gave them a sense of control when so much else felt uncertain. Brown the beef with taco seasoning, cook the rice separately, then set up a bowl bar with beef, rice, beans, diced tomato, cheese, and any other toppings you have on hand. This meal still delivers the same adaptability for families coping with rising food costs today. Beef and potato hash. During the post-war rationing era, when American families had to make every resource count, this filling breakfast-for-dinner choice became a go-to that continued to sustain households through later economic downturns. For just $2.07, you can make a skillet that feeds 3 people. That is about 69 cents per serving. You will need a quarter pound of ground beef, 3 potatoes, 1 onion, and 2 eggs. George, who grew up in that period, said his mother would make this when his father worked late factory shifts. It didn't matter if we ate at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., he said. Dice and parboil the potatoes, then brown the ground beef with the diced onion in a skillet. Add the potatoes and cook until they are crispy. Make wells in the hash and crack the eggs directly into them. Cover and cook until the eggs are set. That same practicality still supports families juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet today. Chili Mac. During the recession of the early 1990s, this hybrid comfort meal became a staple for parents trying to stretch food budgets while still serving something their children would eat. For about $4.05, you can make a pot that feeds 5 people, roughly 81 cents per serving. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, 1 cup of elbow macaroni, 1 onion, 1 can of kidney beans, 1 can of diced tomatoes, and some chili powder. Jennifer, who raised 4 children as a single mother during that recession, called this dish her Wednesday night salvation. The kids never complained about having it, she said. When you're stretching every dollar, not having to fight about dinner is worth more than gold. Brown your beef with diced onion. Add the macaroni, beans, tomatoes, seasonings, and water. Simmer until the pasta is tender and the sauce has thickened. To this day, the recipe still gives that same relief to parents dealing with financial strain. Picadillo. During economic downturns that hit Latino communities especially hard, this traditional recipe helped families keep cultural ties while stretching limited resources. For just $3.34, you can make a skillet that feeds 4 people. That is only 83 cents per serving. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, 1 potato, 1 carrot, 1 onion, some tomato paste, olives, and raisins. Elena, who immigrated from Cuba during hard economic times, told me picadillo was how she kept her family close to their roots. Even when money was tight, picadillo made us feel rich in tradition, she said. That connection was more valuable than any luxury we couldn't afford. Brown your beef with diced onion. Add diced potato and carrot, the tomato paste, water, olives, raisins, and seasonings. Simmer until the vegetables are tender and the flavors have melded. This recipe continues to supply cultural sustenance to immigrant families facing economic challenges today. Hamburger gravy over toast. During the Great Depression, this ultra-simple meal appeared as a way to make something filling and comforting from minimal ingredients. A strategy that kept serving American families through later economic struggles. For just $3.38, you can make a meal that feeds 4 people. That comes to only 84 cents per serving. You will need 1/3 pound of ground beef, some flour, milk, an onion, and bread. Harold, now in his 90s, told me this was what his mother made twice weekly during the Depression. It wasn't fancy, he said, but it filled our bellies and gave us strength to face another day of uncertainty. Brown your beef with diced onion. Sprinkle with flour and cook for 1 minute. Then slowly whisk in milk. Simmer until thickened. Season to taste, and serve over toasted bread. This plain mix still supplies basic sustenance to families facing economic hardship today. Dirty rice. During economic downturns that especially hit southern communities, this traditional Cajun dish helped families hold on to regional foodways while stretching a small amount of meat into a hearty meal. For just $3.38, you can make a pot that feeds 6 people. That is only 56 cents per serving. You will need 1/4 pound of ground beef, 1 cup of rice, an onion, a bell pepper, some celery, and chicken broth. James, whose family struggled through multiple hurricanes and their financial aftermath in Louisiana, told me this dish was their Sunday tradition. No matter how tight money got, it connected us to our heritage, he explained. Even when we had to rebuild our lives from scratch, dirty rice meant we still had our culture. Brown your beef with the holy trinity of onion, bell pepper, and celery. Add rice and broth and simmer until the rice is tender. This recipe keeps providing that link to cultural roots for families facing displacement and financial hardship. Beef stuffed zucchini boats. During the 2008 recession, when many Americans turned to home gardening to stretch tight food budgets, this recipe became a way to turn garden abundance into satisfying meals. For about $4.30, you can make 8 stuffed zucchini halves. That is only 54 cents each. You will need 4 medium zucchini, a quarter pound of ground beef, half an onion, some breadcrumbs, a bit of cheese, and a few basic seasonings. Marie, who lost her real estate job during the housing crisis, said these zucchini boats helped her family eat well from their garden. Turning them into a complete meal with just a little meat made us feel resourceful instead of poor. Cut the zucchini in half lengthwise and scoop out the centers. Chop those centers and mix them with the browned beef, the onion, breadcrumbs, and seasonings. Stuff that mixture back into the zucchini shells. Sprinkle with cheese and bake until tender. This garden-to-table approach continues to help families stretch their food budgets during financial strain. Beef and bean taco cups. During the latest inflation spike, when tortilla prices nearly doubled, this creative alternative helped families keep taco night alive without breaking tight budgets. For just $4.25, you can make 12 taco cups. That is only 35 cents each. You will need a quarter pound of ground beef, a can of refried beans, a package of wonton wrappers, which are much cheaper than tortillas, some cheese, and basic taco seasonings. Angela, a teacher whose salary has not kept pace with inflation, told me these taco cups saved her family's weekly taco tradition. My kids did not even miss the tortillas, she explained. Brown the seasoned beef with the refried beans. Spoon the mixture into the cups, top with cheese, and bake until crispy. This kind of creative problem-solving continues to help families preserve food traditions while adapting to rising costs. Beef fried rice. During periods of economic hardship that particularly affected Asian American communities, this dish emerged as a way to turn leftover rice into a complete, protein-rich meal with minimal meat. For just $3.15, you can make a skillet that feeds 4 people. That is only 79 cents per serving. You will need a quarter pound of ground beef, 2 cups of cold-cooked rice, 2 eggs, an onion, and whatever vegetables you have on hand. Lynn, whose parents immigrated during economic hardship, told me this dish was how her family stretched food without wasting any. My mother could take yesterday's rice and a tiny bit of meat and feed the whole family, she said. Brown the beef. Push it to one side of the pan. Scramble the eggs on the other side. Add the cold rice and chopped vegetables. Stir-fry until everything is hot and season with soy sauce. This method of avoiding waste still helps the families make the most of every ingredient when money is tight. Skillet tamale pie. During the Dust Bowl era, when many American families were displaced and facing severe economic hardship, this filling one-pan meal delivered the most nutrition with the least equipment. It was ideal for families with limited kitchen access. For about $4.75, you can make a skillet that feeds 6 people. That is only 79 cents per serving. You will need a 1/3 pound of ground beef, cornmeal, a can of black beans, a can of corn, a can of diced tomatoes with green chilies, and some cheese. Dorothy, whose grandparents moved west during the Dust Bowl migration, told me this tamale pie helped them survive that trip. They could cook it in a cast-iron skillet over a campfire, she recalled. It gave them the strength to continue toward the hope of a better future. Brown the beef. Add the beans, corn, tomatoes, and seasonings. Mix the cornmeal with water to make a thick batter. Spread that batter over the top. Sprinkle with cheese. Cover and cook until the cornbread layer is set. This flexible, low-equipment method still supports families dealing with housing insecurity and limited cooking facilities. Today, in these difficult economic times, I hope these 25 ground beef recipes that cost under $5 each give you practical ways to feed your family well without breaking your budget. These are not just recipes. These are the hard-earned tips passed down through generations of Americans who learned how to get by and even thrive when money was tight. If this video helped you, please press the like button and subscribe to our channel for more practical, budget-conscious advice. Keep in mind, tough times end, but resilient people endure, especially when they know how to stretch their food dollars farther.